A day in the life of a nobody. A day in the life of a nobody.
So, yeah, I just watched an Instagram video, you know, when you get sort of trapped watching them. I remember it's John somebody, grey-haired good chap. Anyway, he just said, yeah, biggest mistake I made as I got older, never made any friends. Didn't make enough friends, didn't make any friends, didn't make any more friends, something like that. And it's like, yes, yeah, I suppose so, yeah, that's kind of me. You kind of think you've got them by the time you're about 25, you've got all your friends. The kind of negative aspect of that is when they inadvertently die. Two of them have, of mine. You're down by a couple and you don't really recoup them. So that's definitely one of my issues. I didn't really make any more friends. And also as you get older, of course, family life tends to get in the way, and we all move to disparate parts of the country, and I've got a friend in Scotland, friend in, I suppose, have I got a friend in London? Yes, I must have. Friend in South Carolina. So you don't get to see them. And I mean, to be honest, one of the friends I've managed to stay most in touch with, and it's mainly down to him, I have to say, is Simon, a friend of mine in South Carolina, and we sort of video chat, send each other videos, and that's nice. Because, you know, you don't interrupt each other, you just get everything off your chest like you do, like I'm doing now. Just get everything off your chest, and he does, you know, and then he'll do the same back, and we'll sort of discuss stuff. You can make notes. It's quite a good app. You can make notes. Marco Polo, it's called. That's it. You can make notes of what's, you know, what the subjects are he's covered, and then you can, when you're doing your bit, you can have your notes on the screen, and you can, you know, answer all the questions or discuss further, which is good. You know, Gemma's away this weekend. She's been doing an amazing job of kind of trying to sort my mum out, because my mum has, as I've mentioned before, the beginnings of dementia, has no short-term memory, and is a complete nightmare. And we're trying to sell her house so we can do something about it, like move her closer, move her into somewhere appropriate that could look after her, which she will be against all the way, but there's nothing she can do about it. Not much we can do about it either until we sell the house. And then Gemma's going to see my ex-girlfriend, because they're great mates. Of all the people she could have gone to see, of her own friends initially, she's going to see Emily, who is the godmother of one of our children, because one of my very few girlfriends, in fact, I think the only one that I managed to sort of reform a relationship with on a platonic friendship level, and we've remained really good friends, which is nice. But as Gemma managed to gain that friend, I just kept the old one. Every relationship has a kind of, you know, what works and what doesn't work. And very few of my sort of male relationships really involve true feelings, you know, or just a discussion of. There's a train. And again, it goes back to my earlier point of I don't really want to delve into my darkest places with other people, particularly. The vulnerability doesn't attract me, and I don't like advice. I don't want people going, well, what you should do is, I don't really want it. I don't know why that is, but I just don't believe anybody else knows better than I do. And I know I don't know everything, and I'm not the most knowledgeable or correct person on any subject. But I rarely trust what anybody else says, even if they aren't. I mean, you know, when the plane's flying, I'd rather be flying it than the pilot. Not that I think you know, if he said, what does that do? I wouldn't know. But I think if I did know, I'd be better than him. If I'd been through a little bit of training. Yeah. So there is, yes. Is that arrogance, or is that just ignorance? Probably. I just think I can do everything better than anybody else. If I just have the same training as them, I'll be better. Yeah, it's not worrying at all, is it? So, The other thing is, you know, of the male friends I have that where we do sort of discuss slightly more intimate sides of ourselves. I mean, you know, I mean in terms of our mental health. I would generally call them overthinkers. I definitely overthink things, but I don't overcommunicate things, as my wife would thoroughly agree. And again, that's down to I don't want to hear everybody else talking about it, but also I don't want to give things credence. I don't want to give them part of my time any more than it's already taken up in my head. So if I can move on and can kind of try and quash worries and anxieties rather than just talk them through, I suppose I would rather do that. I would rather just, you know, quash them, just get rid of them, or try and get rid of them, rather than discuss them, because discussing them somehow makes them even worse and bigger and more real, and now everybody else knows, and now every time I pass that person, they're asking me how I'm feeling about that thing that we talked about. And that doesn't work with me. I don't want that. I want to be able to, when I see other people, to talk about something else and take my mind off that thing I'm worrying about, not discuss it with them every time I see them. So there's that. I suppose the other one, probably, is the obvious one, which is my relationship with my mother. Welcome to my therapy. Who, I mean, there's so many facets to my mother, and fascinating things about her, really. But one of them was wanting to know everything about me, but then having a very strong opinion, which usually made me feel very uncomfortable about it. And she had very dated 1950s views of things. So, for example, you know, if I had a girlfriend, she would suggest I bought her flowers and chocolates and dressed smartly before going to see her. And this is the 1980s, you know. And of course, there was the natural explorations one begins when one gets a girlfriend. I'm talking about the physical ones. I couldn't tell her about that because that was not acceptable on any level. Bring the ball, I'm here. Bring the ball here. No, I'm here. Poppy, I'm here. Not 10 feet away, I'm here. Bring it here. Oh, nearly. So yeah, as I was saying, I used to, the first time I sort of brought a girlfriend back to my house. Our house was a very open plan house, and I wasn't allowed to take her to my bedroom. We had to sit in the middle of the dining room, which is overlooked by the kitchen and every other room of the house, because it's all open plan. So basically my mother was just there cooking the supper. We were like sitting awkwardly next to each other, not knowing what to do. And that was about as much fun as that was. So yeah, I blame my mother for so much. Although I in a sense I don't. I suppose I kind of rejected her. That's nice to hear, isn't it, if you're a mother? I suppose I rejected her and just went, do you know what, I'm just going to do this on my own and learn on my own. I don't want your input anymore, because it was too restrictive and too negative, and there were too many kind of rules that I couldn't see the point of. So I sort of, you know, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this on my own. My dad was always quite sort of distant, never had really any input on sort of upbringing or kind of morals or anything particularly. My mother was definitely the sort of driving force behind values and morals and things. You know, which essentially were sort of your basic Christian ones, with a touch of snobbery thrown in. I never. Oh, God, it sounds so self-pitying, but I'm not. I've no need to be. I'm not pitying myself, but I didn't really fit in with any particular group. I think a lot of people think that about themselves, and I'm not alone, therefore. But yeah, I didn't really fit in with any sort of particular group, so I kind of tried different groups and they lasted for so long, and then I'd move on to something else. But nothing really quite worked for me. So I couldn't identify with a particular brand of person, which I suppose, in a sense, is why I didn't lock down any best friend, because any friend that I had only had a sort of, gave me a sort of certain amount of satisfaction. There was always something missing. So every friend brought something to the party, but I needed lots of different things from different people, is a way I might put it. So the idea of my best friend, I suppose, in my head, if I had a best friend, would be like a mirror image of me. Somebody who had the same sort of spectrum of interests and abilities or inabilities or whatever as me. Then I'd go, yeah, that's somebody I completely identify with, so that's my best friend. So I never found that person, because that person doesn't exist. So that's why I kind of don't believe in best friends in that sense. For me, anyway. So yeah, food for thought.
And it would be so funny, it would be so funny if I had $1 for everyone. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny, the day in the life of a nobody. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny if I had $1 for everyone. And it would be so funny, it would be so funny, the day in the life of a nobody.